Hey, Nikki, what is that alarm, that beeping? Is that for
So,
me, or I'm
welcome to
ending
Couch
up on?
Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. Welcome. It's Monday night, and what night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. For those of you who are wondering about that beeping in the background, it's my alarm. It's having a problem. We're waiting on it. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. So know that my house is safe. It's safe. So if you come here, it's gonna go off. But this constant beeping is driving me crazy just as well. So I will be muting in between so you won't get it as much. But hey, if there's anybody listening that works for ADT, hurry up and fix this. Y'all supposed to be here about a week ago, and you haven't gotten here yet. With that being said, we're gonna go around the panel and we're gonna introduce all of our great guests as we always do on each and every Monday night, starting with Dr. 100. I think her name is Dr. Maya Green. Dr. Green.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Call me Dr. 100 because I like to keep it. Can you hear me? Because I like to keep it 100 in the streets. I like to go 100 on your health. I am the founder of Onyx Medical Wellness, and we have a program called Nexus. I'm excited to talk about all the primary care and all the community health, and I'm excited to learn from the community. So thank you, Nikki and Congressman, for getting this platform together. And thank you, colleagues, for how many years in now? Ain't new to this, stay true to this. Let's get it.
I think she's frozen.
I think she froze. So,
all right. Thank you, Dr. 100. And we're going to go to the man who has the great art, Joe Harrington. Joe.
Thank you, Nikki. And I want to say thank you to my colleagues for joining, and really thank Congressman Davis working with Nikki to provide this platform. My name is Joe Harrington. I retired in 2017 from the Illinois Department of Public Health, where I was the regional health officer. I have a background in public health and healthcare, worked at 3 hospitals, worked for the city health department 3 times, and again, retired from the state. I know enough to be dangerous. I guess that's the best way to put it. But I'm honored to be here and honored to be a part of this august panel.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much, Joe. Welton, my colleague who tends to leave us and have fun in the sun. Just want to let you know, Doug, it's about 75 degrees here in.
Well, Nikki, I just want to share, I know what you've been saying. I'm coming back to Chicago next week. So I'll be, back in the heartland, and I've had as much fun as I can have where I am right now. So I'm a retired physician. I spent 30 years working in the western suburbs, and then spent 2 years after I retired in the congressman's office. And it really opened my eyes to public health and public service. It's really an honor to be here with my colleagues, and we're going to try and answer your questions as best we can.
Is my step plan over there?
Outstanding. Well, to our very own neurologist of the stars, that's our very own Dr. Terry Mason, who hates accolades, but he tends to keep everyone together. So my question is there a doctor in the house? Go right ahead, Dr. Mason.
Thank you, Nikki. And for those who may not know, the Doctor in the House is his name, my radio show that's every Sunday on WVON at 10 o'clock. Been doing it for about 30 years now. But I want to thank the Congressman and Nikki for putting together this forum that allowed us to be able to communicate to our population so that they would understand, particularly back during the time of COVID. So I thank them. I wasn't involved at that time, but it's a godsend, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. I'm retired. I was I'm a urologist by training and did that for some time, and was on staff at Mercy, Michael Reese hospitals. Those you might remember Michael Reese hospitals, and also been doing did urologic training, particularly around prostate cancer and male erectile dysfunction, were the 2 big areas that we focused on because that was a real problem. So I'm grateful to be here, and as a result, of those things, I've actually learned a lot about food and been involved in a study or so too about that. So thank you for having me, and I'm prayerful to be helpful tonight.
All right, thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Connie Taylor, who is here with us, and she's saying good evening to everyone. Want to say hey to Eric Kabler, who is here, and also Eunice Young is here with us just as well. So want to say hey to those two. So to our physician, who is a physician by day and a DJ by night. That's our very
Hey, Nikki, Congressman, it's a pleasure for me to be here with my colleagues. Looking forward to a vibrant discussion tonight, educate the community. I'm an internist by training, medical director at Howard Brown. Happy to be here. I think Nikki may be frozen. Dr. Hampton, you wanna take it over?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself first. I'm a family doctor here on the south side of Chicago, really focused on having a conversation with patients about how their lifestyle can impact their health on every single visit. So I really try to do that. I ask simple questions like, what did you eat yesterday? We all should be asking that question. And then from that conversation, decide what they should do in terms of their lifestyle changes. So I'm really happy to be here. I think that it's important that we talk directly to the people. And I really appreciate Nikki and Congressman for the opportunity. So am I the last panelist to introduce themselves besides the Congressman?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you. So with that, I'll give the floor to Congressman Danny Davis.
Well, thank you all very much. And when I grow up, I want to be like Joe Harrington and Dr. Mason. And what I really mean by that is when I no longer have to have title and just keep doing what I do, because that's what they do, is without title or portfolio, keep doing what they do. So I want to commend them especially. But I really want to commend all of you for the tremendous insight and information that you bring to us. These are perilous times, and anybody who don't recognize it need to recognize it, because it's more than just a changing of the guard. These guys are trying to change the way we live, change the way we think, change what we believe. And so it's one thing reading about Hitler, it's another thing experiencing what's going on right now. And we're in the midst of it. We got a full house, so let's get it on.
Excellent. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki, are you with us yet?
She's with us in spirit.
I think so.
Oh, okay, there you go. There you go. There you go. That's so funny.
So I want to
Go ahead.
say hey to Mary Ballinger, who is here. She says, good evening to everyone. It is great to see and hear you all. And also, Kim Alexander is here, and she says, good evening. Let's get this wealth with health education moving. Okay, so I hope my internet has calmed itself down. Let's get rolling with our conversation. So I know you guys sent in a plethora of questions in reference to Parkinson's disease and different neurological diseases. So, Dr. Pete.
So Nikki, I think I'm going to kind of step in for Dr. Pete right now. I'm going to say that
You're muted,
this
Pete.
is, uh, Nikki, I'm going to step in for him. This is kind of unfortunately how human beings get old. It's a wear and tear situation upstairs in our brains. And this is also a problem with health equity. There was an article published in 2020 showing that individuals who were discharged from the hospital, people of color, had fewer diagnoses of Parkinson's disease and fewer medications for Parkinson's disease, but the incidence of Parkinson's disease is relatively the same across almost all ethnic groups. And so this is a disease where the connections between the wires in the brain no longer work very well. And the chemical communication between between the wires in the brains isn't working very well. And as a result, you get a tremor, you get stiffness, your blood pressure doesn't stay where it should, and sometimes you have fainting spells, and you walk in a very slow and mechanical way. And it really takes someone with training like a neurologist to make the diagnosis. I don't know if I can specifically identify any environmental causes for it or any industrial causes for it. For instance, if iron workers are more likely to get it, or people who work in steel mills or tire factories are more likely to get it. I can't say I don't have the fund of knowledge, but it does require an examination to look for the physical findings of it. And sometimes it requires special x-ray tests, like a CT scan or an MRI, to look at the interior structures of the brain to see how things are working.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that, thanks, Doug. I completely agree with that. Is it's slightly more common in men. It does start around the age of 60, but can occur earlier than that. And again, like Doug said, some of the things that I will notice when my patients walk in the room, they have what they call a shuffling gait, where their feet just kind of like puddles along, kind of like a little duck. You'll see that, and then they have a resting tremor when they're in the exam room. So typically, a family member will bring the person and say, "Hey, I've noticed, my mom or dad is not moving the way they should. They move very slow, very deliberate, and when they do move, they kind of have a shuffling kind of gait."
Yeah, and sometimes they can't express their emotions in their face the way they did in the past. I mean, I know that because my godfather had Parkinson's disease. In the later stages, he would complain bitterly. He was a very intelligent, professional man, and he kind of felt trapped. He just didn't have control the way that he typically experienced having control. Things are different now. There are medications and treatment, but it's beyond my experience to comment on those.
Joseph, you're muted. I'll let you speak before I comment.
Okay. Yeah. Just listening to the description, some of what we described or you described could be just things really related to normal aging. So a person could have those symptoms and people around them might just think that it's old age. It's a neurological disorder. But if there's something wrong and you've seen a significant change in a loved one, you probably want to talk to their doctor and maybe suggest that that person see a neurologist to rule out the possibility that it's a neurological disorder or something related to aging. Because as we get older, and I can speak for myself and some of the people under that are a little longer in the tooth than some other people, that things don't work the same way they used to when you're young. And even if you're young and middle aged, you find that things just don't work the way they used to. And that doesn't mean there's a problem. But if you're not in a system of care where you're seeing a doctor regularly, you wouldn't know there was a problem till it was a big problem. That's what happens a lot of times. We wait because they say, oh, it may go away, or I'll just get used to, I'll just adjust around this. This is my new normal. That's what we tend to do. This is my new normal. And that's one of the worst things to do. If all of a sudden, regardless of the symptoms, if things start to change and things are not going, and I'm talking about not just a day or two, but maybe a week, and then it goes into a month, That's something you shouldn't adjust to. That's something you need to talk to your doctor about, have an exam, and ask your doctor if he thinks something, and perhaps they need to refer you to somebody that's an expert in that area.
I was just going to ask, it was either Doug or one of you who tried to describe the tremor, or Pete, Dr. Thomas. Could you show, because we do have video availability on this talk, on this platform, for those who can use it. If you could sort of show that tremor that you, whoever was trying to describe it, if you could just sort of show that for folks, that might be helpful for some. Because we use terms, and a lot of times people don't know what they mean.
Yeah, like, I mean, typically what I'll do is just to distinguish the difference between Parkinson's tremor and essential tremor, I will ask the patient to pick up a pen. And what you'll notice is that the person, when they're trying to pick up the pen, there's no tremor at all. The hand is very steady. But then when they just stop and say, I just say, hold your hand out, and then their hand is doing like this. So that's called the resting tremor. But if I ask them to do something, the hand stops tremoring. So try to say tremoring. That's not a word, y'all, but you know what I'm saying. We family here, right?
Okay. Yeah, we family. Okay. Let me comment about I always look at all of these chronic diseases through the lens of our like metabolic health and the root cause, because one thing that I try to give patients is hope, because if you have a family history, you want to know that you can do something to maybe mitigate this. And Parkinson's is one of those diseases where you may be able to impact it in a way that you had not thought about, because the question is, why do you have it in the first place? And the brain is so important, because I remember learning in school that the brain takes up 20% of your body's energy. A lot of the energy that your body uses, and it's just really, it's very small. It's only 2% of your body weight, but 20% of your energy is going to your brain, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because you have to sleep at night, your brain's still working, right? It never stops working, just like your heart. And Parkinson's, is one of those diseases where your mitochondria, your energy factories, start to work poorly. So, and when that occurs, when you have mitochondria that don't work well, you have a lot of inflammation in your body, and we have terms like oxidative stress, et cetera. So, but this is the key. We always talk about, like, when I say metabolic health, I'm talking about when your insulin level is high and you have a lot of sugar floating around and things like that. And it really causes inflammation. So for purposes of this discussion, you may have heard that term type 3 diabetes describing dementia, but some researchers also put Parkinson's in the same category. And basically what it's saying is there's an energy, you're not getting enough energy to the brain for the brain to function. And guess who has a lot of diabetes and insulin resistance? People of color. So you tend to see people of color at risk for this, because it's actually an inflammation disease. So, and when that inflammation affects your nerves, it really disrupts all the pathways that help your brain to function properly. And one of those important substances that's important is the dopamine system. So when the dopamine gets messed up, all of a sudden you have a lot of the symptoms that were described. So what I tell people is that you can't live in an inflamed body. If your body's inflamed, your risk for Parkinson's and dementia will skyrocket, which is why we call it type 3 diabetes. So, but some of the things you can do besides remove all the inflammatory foods, certain vitamins, your mitochondria really depends on your B vitamins to work properly. Believe it or not, vitamin D is important, omega-3 is important, and your brain needs to have circulation. So you need to exercise. When your brain is clearing out debris, it happens when you're sleeping at night. So you need to actually sleep at night. You know what I mean? So a lot of the things that you can do, they sound simplistic, and I call it, again, low-hanging fruit. But if we take care of the low-hanging fruit, I mean, I have patients who literally get 4 hours of sleep every night, and then they go and work, and they work sometimes 2 jobs, and then they expect their body to function optimally. And imagine doing that year after year after year. If you do it year after year after year, the electrical pathways in your brain and the neural pathways are not going to function. And so you're going to be more predisposed to this, not to mention if you have a family history. So I think whenever we have these conversations, we have to look at it through the lens of what can I do? So if you're never exercising ever, you may want to think about starting to take a walk. If you only get 4 hours of sleep, you may want to start finding a way to get more than 4 hours of sleep. Because no matter what you think in your brain, that's not enough sleep. It just isn't, but go ahead.
Joseph, you're muted.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Joe.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, I found a chart. I'm going to see if this works and put it up on the screen. Let me see. I'll try again. Hold on. Yeah, I've opened it, but it's not showing up on. How do I get it to? Well, maybe.
Did you click share screen or did you click?
Yeah, I click share screen.
There you go. It's showing up now.
Oh, okay. So that's what the tremors look like. That gives people a real idea of what the tremors look like. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I think 2 things you need to talk about. You talked about the dopamine system and mitochondria. So those are technical terms.
Yeah.
And so let me see if I can stop now.
Oh, no worries.
It's gone. Okay. So could you discuss those 2 things? Because you talked about things, those are technical terms.
Yeah, they
you
are.
Talk about the dopamine system and the mitochondria. Then just explain what those are and what you.
Yeah, that's fair.
How you meant it. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought I was still in medical school with Brother Pete, and we were reviewing. we were reviewing our lesson, and he was quizzing me, and I'm sorry, I lost my mind for a second.
Yeah. Blame it on Pete.
I gotta blame it on Pete. That's right. So dopamine is definitely. So we have these messengers in our brain that help us to, they're like chemical messengers. We call them neurotransmitters. And dopamine is one of them. And one of dopamine's function is to help control movement. It actually affects, think about it. When we think about dopamine, we think about what drugs do, right? So if you want to feel good or have a high mood, be motivated, or just have a sense of reward, dopamine is what gets sparked. So that's the first thing. And I think when you start to lose some of that dopamine and it starts to die off, that's when you start to have symptoms of Parkinson's. So instead of being like moving fast, motivated, energetic, instead you're going to be stiff, you're going to be shaky, and you're going to be a little slow. So that's how I would describe dopamine. Mitochondria, that's like every cell has a mitochondria within it. And that's the part of your body that makes energy. So when we eat food and when we have oxygen going into our body, we use the mitochondria to turn that to ATP, which is a way to describe our energy. And the bottom line is when you have Parkinson's, not only do you have a deficiency in dopamine, you have a deficiency in, or your mitochondria is not working well, which means you're going to have less energy, and it's going to make you vulnerable to all the negative effects. So basically, mitochondria is like the battery in your phone, and dopamine is just one of those things that we need to have that speed and that extra little that we need. So, and all of those symptoms that Joe just shared, are the result of that. So a lot of the drugs out there are making an attempt to increase the amount of dopamine in your body so that you can kind of, but the problem is um, it's not necessarily going to be able to stay the course for a long time. The drugs are just not, they increase dopamine for a while. Like one of the medicines my patients tend to take is called levodopa. And it's just like, it increases it. It gives the brain more of that raw material called dopamine. But it's kind of hard to replace something on a long scale. So it may help for a while, but a lot of times it doesn't like help long term, which is why I'm such a big fan of prevention. And even if you have this problem, you talk about, all of those things, those low hanging fruit like exercise, diet, blah, 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 you still will improve your symptoms if you're doing those things even if you have the diagnosis. So it's never too late to use your lifestyle as a lever.
For the internist on the board, how do you make the diagnosis for a person who walks in the office, or a person in their wife or their husband or their whomever? How do you how do you make that diagnosis so that they should know what they're looking for when they go?
I think there are at least 10 physical examination challenges that they give you, and they watch how you tap your fingers, they watch how you roll your fingers, they watch how you walk, and do a few other things. So I think there's kind of a set protocol among neurologists to look for some of the features, and it's usually a certain number of criteria out of the list. You don't have to have all 10, you may have to have 4 out of the 10. And that may give them the reason to tell the insurance company, I'd like to do an MRI or a CT scan to make the definitive diagnosis. But on the other hand, since there's so many other possibilities, they may want to order some blood tests and do other things just to make sure that they're not being tricked by some of the symptoms, which could be mimics of something else. So they kind of have, this disease has been around for such a long time. They've developed systems for making the diagnosis and evaluating.
Yeah, and they do have one test that is that we don't necessarily lose. What we do in primary care is that we'll have somebody in front of us who really looks like they have those. They're very rigid, or they have that tremor that's resting, as opposed to being moving their hand and not having it. A masked face where they have this plain looking face, or they that shuffled gait. It's almost like they're shuffling. So if we see those things, we tend to refer to neurology to confirm, because of the nature of the diagnosis is so critical. But we also are comfortable starting like a levodopa medicine prior to the referral, so they can start to get some of the benefit, and also a way to diagnose. So if you give a person a dopamine promoting drug, and then they start to improve, you probably got the right diagnosis. But Doc was right in that MRIs and CTs help. And if you go to like a university setting, they have dopamine scans where they can actually detect the dopamine activity in your brain. But I don't think that's like a standard test that's done. It's just something that's on the list of possibilities if they're not sure and they want to maybe at a higher level of care get that information. So
yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm just
I won't forget where I was.
just add two things. One is 2 newer tests. They're doing spinal taps also to look for certain proteins, particularly as an alpha protein that they look for. And also there's a skin biopsy that they do to look for, of course, they look for there's a nerve that they biopsy, the skin nerve. So anyway, those are 2 of the newer tests that they're doing. But to my colleague's point, usually it's somebody that fits the classical picture of it, and it may not have all of those symptoms, but it's enough. Parkinson's presents itself in a way, that you really can't, like, you cannot miss it, right?
Right.
You may not have all of them, but they will have enough to get you suspicious enough to say, hey, before we send you to the neurologist, I'm gonna start you on levodopa.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is sort of flip the script in a sense. because we've talked about a lot about Parkinson's, but typically what we talk about are things that people can do to reduce their risk of disease or getting sick or having some of these conditions. But there's nothing directly that you can do, but there are things that you could possibly do to mitigate the impact moving forward if you start now. And those are things that Dr. Hampton and Dr. Mason talk about all the time. I mean, uh, and one of the things that Dr. Hampton talked about is sleep. You need to get an adequate amount of sleep on a regular basis. If you're sleeping 4 hours, getting 4 hours of sleep, and up, that leaves what, another 10 hours? I mean, 14 hours. I mean, if you only sleep in 4 hours, that's 20 hours
I know.
that you're active in one day. I mean, that can't be healthy. If you're not eating properly, that could not necessarily cause Parkinson, but mitigate what's going to happen when it happens. And then the other thing is being active. We're not active. So I'm not saying they will prevent Parkinson's. What I'm saying is leading a healthy lifestyle might to some degree mitigate what happens. And I'll leave it to the doctors to actually chime in on that.
Yeah. I'll definitely endorse that statement. And I'll be honest, Joe. When I have conversations even in my health system about topics that relate to what lifestyle can do, I find that um, many of my colleagues, if we use diabetes as an example, they've never seen anybody get off their diabetes medicine if they have type 2 diabetes ever in their career. So it may also then translate to them saying, if I'm a specialist and I'm a neurologist and I've never seen a person with Parkinson's get better. I've seen people with dementia get better. So if you've never seen that, you're just going to assume that do it, it's a good idea, but they're not expecting a lot of return on investment. I'm here to say that there is return on investment. Now, let's be clear. This is different than trying to help somebody with diabetes. You could reverse type 2 diabetes fairly quickly by eating the right foods that don't raise your sugar. Just put a continuous glucose meter on your arm and just simply stop eating the stuff that spike your sugar. It's not very complicated. But when you're dealing with dementia and Parkinson's, you really have to be a little bit more restrictive, and you have to really use the entire menu of things to improve your health, including sleep, exercise, less stress, more sleep, etc. But the main thing I tell people, eat real food. Ultra processed food is a disaster. Excessive sugar is a disaster. And some would argue seed oils that are made out of seeds, are a disaster. And in order to improve your brain, this is one of the funniest things. Sometimes your brain just needs a rest from food. Sometimes fasting is a good idea. People who fast in the morning, for example, may do better than people who are eating like they're constantly eating like a cow all day long. Their mouth is constantly moving. We need to stop moving our mouths and give our body time to heal and recover. And I think that's really important, that we understand the food part, maybe the supplement part. If I can get some omega-3 in my body, and then just prioritize what Joe has said. I literally will finish this conversation with you guys, and when I go upstairs to where my wife is, she'll hand me my blue light blocking glasses, because she knows that an hour or so before bed, if I do that, I'm going to increase melatonin. It's going to get my body into a circadian rhythm. And in the morning, as I prepare to release a YouTube video, because I do it in the morning, I'll sit in front of that bright light, that 10,000 lux lamp. So now my cortisol goes up in the morning, my melatonin goes up at night. And these are little hacks, but these little hacks over the course of years will give your body the type of healing it needs. Vitamin D, we all, listen, everybody on this call, including people with light skin, probably doesn't have adequate vitamin D. So we need to add vitamin D. So one of the things I do in the morning is I put a little dropper of vitamin D in my mouth because I know I'm not going to get enough sun in Chicago. And even if I live in Florida, I may not get enough. And vitamin D is one of the nutrients that help. So it sounds like a broken record when we keep talking about the lifestyle piece. But what you find is if you just talk to people, and this happened to me today in clinic, they are not doing these things. They are, people yourself who are not ever moving their body. They're just not doing it. And then they are surprised when they can't move their body when they need to move their body. So we have to just take a walk. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to have muscles, bulging out of your neck. But man, just imagine if you did a walk every day to the extent you can. What would that do for your circulation in your brain? It would do wonders. And I just want to remind people it's low hanging fruit.
I want to jump in and I see Dr. Mason. Dr. Mason, you got something to say before I
Yeah,
jump in?
I was just going to say that a lot of these things, that we're talking about are things that should be part of what we do on a regular basis. Like like you, Tony, I walk everywhere I go. So I don't expect people to do that just about everywhere I go because I live in Hyde Park and that's easy to do. But the other thing is, that means you need to make sure you need to have the right shoes. You want to make sure I go and see a physician. In fact, I go see Dr. Greg Primus to make sure that I'm getting the right shoes for the kinds of activities that I want to do. And you need to be careful also, especially in some places in Hyde Park, the sidewalks are not always even. And so you got to be careful about when you're walking. Not that you don't walk, but you just have to be careful about it. And the other thing is that in terms of the supplements, we got to remember supplements are just that. They're supplements. They're not replacements. So we need to always remember that at some point, and I'm one that likes to go as close to the natural source as possible for these things, rather than the processed source of these things, really that when I have an opportunity. And others on the panel can comment on that. But there is one other very important ingredient that we need to make certain that we have enough of every day. It's a simple thing called water. And most of us don't get enough of it. And if you're not drinking enough of it because maybe you got some prostate issues if you're a man, or maybe you have some other issues, but we do need to make sure that we get the water that we need as we're exercising. And I'll stop right there because I'll get on myself.
How much water? How much? Quantify it.
Well, I just tell, first of all, start with a glass. Start with one glass. One regular sized glass, just start with that. And then if you go out and walk, you'll have another one when you come back. And of course, you got to be careful because based on where you are and how much you drink may determine the frequency at which you need to go to the bathroom. Those may not always be available in your area easily. So you have to take all these things into consideration. So
what I'm going to suggest is a half a liter to a liter at minimum, because you can stagger how you drink the water, but you need to have an adequate amount of water in your diet every day, because drinking soda is not like drinking water. Drinking beer is not like drinking water. Water is the liquid that you need. 70% of our bodies are water, and our bodies need water. So I would recommend that people make an effort to at least have, and that might be, maybe 2 8-ounce, 3 8-ounce glasses of water a day. If you do that, at least you'll get close to something. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about and mention is the fact that we can do, and that's what we're talking about. There are things that we can do to limit the likelihood that we'll develop any kind of thing. And if we do, we'll be healthier. So when it happens, it'll be a good thing. At least we'll be better able to cope with it. But one of the things that I've heard some physicians say, not all, because I've worked with a lot of clinics, that some doctors have told me they can get their patients to be more compliant to taking a pill than eating right. Because it's not that they don't talk about the fact you need to lose weight. They talk about the fact you need to lose 10 pounds. And the next time you come back, if you weigh 12 pounds to 15 pounds, and then the next time you come back after that, they give up because they know that you're just going to take the medicine. So no matter how often they say it, but if your doctor is telling you you need to lose weight, you need to listen to your doctor and you need to lose the weight because you think, oh, I'm taking this pill now and I'll be all right. The pill is not going to compensate for the additional weight that you have, which is going to put additional pressure on your heart and your other bodily organs, which eventually will lead to these diseases that you are trying to prevent. Pills are not a panacea. They help manage the disease. But the things that are underlying disease are what Dr. Hampton and Dr. Mason always talk about is these lifestyle things like foods we eat, the amount of time we spend moving. Those are the things that really help mitigate it. The medicines don't. They just keep you at a certain point.
And then I just want to say hello to Mary Ballinger. Says good evening, everyone. It's great to see and hear you all. Kim Alexander Jackson says good evening. Let's get this wealth with health education. Um, Mary Ballinger says speak the truth, Congressman Davis. Nellie Purnell King. Good evening. Good evening. All right, and then Audrey J. Cox. Good evening, everyone. Uh, Yolanda Williams, good evening. Angela Underwood, so much information. Definitely, you all want to get in at least 8 ounce glasses of water a day and get those in. Another thing, I know we don't love these, but people drink those 16-ounce water bottles, 4 of those minimum. And that's the minimum. Remember, if like they said, if you're having something with caffeine or something that's going to cause you to flush your water out, you got to put it back in, right? And so I tell my patients, hey, you're going to drink whatever you're going to drink. I know Dr. Mason, but if you are a person that has another drink the equivalent of water first, and then you drink that. Also, Alderman Pat Dow and Carrie Steele, good evening. I also, I've been listening because I love when I get a chance to hear and learn and listen to how other people are communicating this to community, but also how they're communicating that in the exam room or with the patient. So thank you all for that. Dr. Hampton didn't mention, did you mention sugar? There's a couple of people that mentioned it, I think, and its impact. There's clear cut evidence that sugar can mean sweet sugar, it can mean candy, it can mean pasta, it can mean rice, those type of things, but certainly the processed sugars worse than the other ones, have negative outcomes. And if you're living in supporting someone living with Parkinson's, you may say, what did you say? Because we see a lot of when someone's living with Parkinson's, that craving for sugar, that's that trying to get that dopamine going, And so there's immediate appearance to it being of help, but the long-term outcome is negative, right? So, and just like a lot of things, which, oddly enough, got me to thinking about what about illicit substances, right? There are some illicit substances like methamphetamines and things like that that demonstrate poor outcomes and more likelihood to be a person living with Parkinson's as you mature. Yes, there are, but I remember one of my patients Googled and was like, most illicit substances don't do it, but the additive, I have to look it up. It's MPTP. There's an additive people use to make illicit substances that actually almost sends a person into an early Parkinson's situation. So no, someone was like, well, cannabis doesn't do it. Yeah, but the additive does. Cocaine doesn't do it, but the additive does. And so keeping aware of that and the high risk of Parkinson's and illicit substances, heroin, the additive they use, MPTP is what we call it. It's like methyl. So I will look it up and put it in the chat before we go. But illicit substances. When you, I mean, I'm not saying sugar is an illicit substance. I know there's some doctors on here that think it should be, you know, but it also has that same effect as illicit substances. That dopamine desire right now to resolve the immediate problem, and then the long-term worse effect that's aggregated over time. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to hop in on that. I know it's 7:52. I don't know if Nikki wants to hop in, but I do want people to be cognizant of that.
I think that's important, Maya. I think it's important that we try and give as much information in ways that people can understand it, and more importantly, use it to change their or modify their lives if they must or should. So we have to understand, and I'm going to say this. This is going to sound awful, but it's true. There is no value proposition in our current system for health. Health is purely your responsibility, because first of all, our systems are all built around whether hospital, clinics, and what have you. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is around managing disease. And they allow us to participate in this self-management by going to places like drugstores. And there's times you need to get what you need to get out of a drugstore, but you want to take a look at why you're there, what the real problem is, and have a conversation. If you're going there buying X-Lax all the time, or you're all going there all the time buying this over-the-counter medication or what have you, probably should have a conversation with your primary care doctor, even though it is something over the counter and without prescription. So I'd always recommend, because you never know what the combinations of the things that you're taking in combination with some of the other stuff that you're taking from a prescription point of view, you don't know. So always check just to be on the safe side. And I'll ask my internal medicine or my other colleagues to comment, because they probably see this since I don't.
I know Nikki just texted me. She's having some difficulties. She said, do not forget to thank the Core Center. And how could I? Shame on me. Hello. Tripping, right, Dr. Pete? Tripping. Somebody trying to be brand new around here. Straight tripping. My bad, Core Center. Thank you all so much.
Yes.
Some of you all don't know. Dr. Pete taught me what I know at the Core Center, you know, so
we taught each other. Don't let us don't no, we do.
One of us was the fellow and the other one was the attendant. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
you know,
sometimes
y'all be the judge.
yeah, sometimes the student becomes the teacher.
And so and thank you, Dr. Pete, and also the Core
Thank you,
Center.
Joe.
For the great work you continue to do for community and the impact you've had on me. Now, he also says take it until next Monday. Yes, Nikki, you got it. All right, until next Mondays. Dr. Hampton, you want to start off?
Yeah, I'll just comment by going back to one of the questions I think Joe raised, which is, are doctors actually trying to counsel their patients about diet? And I would argue, from my clinical experience, they will absolutely mention it for sure. But they mention it the same way they mention it at our continuing medical education lecture sponsored by pharma. I'm not trying to be funny. Amen. So you'll have a 50-minute presentation. And at the beginning of the presentation, they'll say, guess what? Lifestyle is the key. And then 49 of those minutes are spent talking about the drugs. So that's what's wrong with our health system, is that because of what I said earlier, our doctors, advanced practice professionals, and others have not been trained to counsel patients about nutrition. We all know doctors are not trained about nutrition. Therefore, they're not going to be comfortable. If you ask a doctor a simple question, doctor, I'm thinking about the Mediterranean diet versus keto versus plant-based. What do you think? Now, they may have an opinion about which diet they prefer, but do they really know how to walk a patient through that dietary pattern, other than clicking nutrition referral? And the answer is they don't.
No.
Therefore, I'm not suggesting they become nutrition professionals. I am suggesting, however, that they know enough to get the patient started. That's all I'm asking. And if they don't do that, the patient, because a doctor is an authority figure in their life. And if a doctor says with passion, this is the secret to putting this into remission or to slow it down, et cetera, the patient will be engaged. But most doctors are not trained. So my call to action for the country is that we start teaching doctors about nutrition so they can then teach their patients about nutrition.
All right. Know about nutrition. And that's even more so important right now. Growing your own food, knowing your own food, right? All right. Mr. Harrington, until next Monday.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on what Tony said and offer up a suggestion. One, if your doctor recommends you should lose weight, ask him to refer you to a nutritionist. No, just because you hear it doesn't mean you'll do it. But if you ask him to refer you to a nutritionist, now you've got a reason to see a nutrition, possibly get it paid for because your doctor's making the referral, and your nutritionist can help you with diet. So that's the missing part. It's not because doctors, they can't get into the subject of that. And unfortunately, in our system, which Dr. Mason so aptly described, they're on the clock. They got to see they got to see somebody after you, so they can't counsel you because they got to get you out of the room so they can get somebody else in. And that's because of the system that we have. So they don't have time to do that. And so my message for next Monday is really it's on my T-shirt because I went to an event and I wore this T-shirt specifically. It's one of my favorite T-shirts. It's a quote by James Baldwin, and I will give you the quote. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced.
All right, get your nutrition in. Nothing can be changed until it is faced. Dr. Mason, until next Monday.
Well, until next Monday, I hope that they could parse out some of the morsels of knowledge that we put out during this time and every time we have this meeting. And nothing's going to happen unless you do something. So just knowing about it, you got to do something. And you have to make that decision for yourself. And I'm not saying you got to do it all, but just get started. Because if you never get started, you'll never make yourself get to where you want to be.
Come on now. He said, don't talk about it, be about it. Dr. Graham,
So I
until
got
next Monday.
two. And one of them is the reason why we want to treat Parkinson's disease is because one of the serious problems with it is their increased risk for falls. And when they fall, they can't protect themselves. So they can get seriously hurt, fractures, concussions, things of that nature. So that's why it's important to make the diagnosis and get people under treatment. One of the other things to address is we're entering into the fall season, which means we're going into flu season. And now more than ever, it's important to get a flu shot. And there's a new strain of COVID. It's the highest in Texas, Utah, and Nevada. It will be coming to Chicago. And if you haven't had a COVID vaccination in the last 6 months, it's probably time to get a COVID booster.
All right, get your flu shot, get your COVID booster, wash your hands, get that thumb. Dr. Pete.
Yeah, I was listening to my colleagues, and one of the things that I got away from this conversation is this idea that inflammation is the enemy, right? And we know that, and even in this progressive neurological disorder called Parkinson's, still inflammation is the culprit. And so, what do we do to inflame your environment? And that's food, selection choices, lower your sugar level, exercise, particularly increasing your core strength, right? Legs and core. And that goes to what Doug was saying in preventing falls. Usually people that fall, they have very weak lower extremities. All right. There are some longevity studies that show that people who live to be 100, they have very strong legs, very strong legs. So your leg strength is a correlation with that. So inflammation is the problem, and the answer, and to Dr. Hampton's point, always is, picking a provider, having a relationship with a provider. And I love this idea that your provider doesn't know everything. And to me, you're the smartest guy if you know you don't know everything, and you know how to put me in the hands of somebody who does know. So to your point, there's a lot of doctors who might not be familiar at all with any sort of lifestyle modification, but they're very familiar with medications to help treat something. And all you're saying is you're not challenging their medical expertise. You respect them, but you're saying I just need a referral to this other source. Not that you're not the man or the woman or whatever. You're just saying I would like to explore opportunities beyond this medication. That's all you're saying. And you are the customer, and you deserve to have that request to be considered.
Okay, he said you can have it your way. You're the customer. Okay. Amen. And such valuable information. Thank you all so very much. And may God bless you and your families always. Okay. That was mine until next Monday.
Yeah, but you got
All
to toss it.
right. Congressman.
Give Danny a chance to close us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Congressman. I was going some.
Okay.
Congressman, that's mine. And then Congressman Davis, do you want to close us out?
I have been eating out of my good and plenty garden. There's a program in the community where I live, a little neighborhood thing. And I guess there are about 20 of us who have gardens. And of course, I've got tomatoes, collard greens, cucumbers, and I make pot liquor. Now you have to have a certain age to understand the value of pot liquor. And I must confess that my wife is improving and getting better at preparing every day. Plus, it's very cost effective. I mean, some days a corn muffin and some pot liquor does not cost very much. I mean, I could do that a long time. But no, the conversations are getting better and better all the time. And you continue to inspire and bring hope. Because even with all of the things that are swirling around us, the healthier we are, the better able we are to fight them off and fight them back. And we need to be as healthy as we can possibly be in both body and mind. Because these guys are thinking every day to push back. And in order to fight, you got to be strong. Jerry Butler used to sing a song and he'd say, "Only the strong survive." And I remember the lyrics of that, where he would say to the boy that, "I see you sitting out there all alone, crying your heart out because the woman that you love is gone. But you got to be a man. You got to take a stand because only the strong survive." So we've got to be a woman. We got to be a man. We got to take a stand because only the strong survive. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And we'll see you next week. Yes, only the strong survive. Yeah, see you there with your head down.